everyone for staying with us. Let's get into one of the major stories of today, and that was the moment when Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the February 2023 presidential election, took to the podium today in Abuja, where he addressed a press conference. He says that the dream for a new Nigeria has not ended with the October 26, 2023 verdict of the Supreme Court, which affirms Mr. Bola Tinubu as the validly elected president of Nigeria. Mr. Obi faulted the judgment of the Apex Court and agreed that the end has come to the legal battle of the last election, but he says he will not be backing down, and now is declared that it's not the end of the journey, but in fact the beginning, and he's asked Nigerians to now take it as an official notice that they will now form a major opposition in Nigeria. Take a listen to an excerpt of Mr. Obi's press conference today.
Certain legal issues aside, the Supreme Court exhibited a disturbing aversion to public opinion, just as they abandoned its responsibility as court of law and policy. It is therefore with great dismay that I observe that the court's decision contradicts the overwhelming evidence of election rigging, false claim of technical glitch, substantial non-compliance to the rules set by INEC itself, as well as matters of perjury, identity theft, and forgery has been brought to light in course of this election matter. Our young democracy is ultimately the main victim and casualty of the courtroom drama. This judgment amounts to a breach of confidence of Nigerians have in our judiciary. To that extent, it is a show of unreasonable force against the very Nigerian people from whom the power of the Constitution derives. The Supreme Court's ruling may represent the state of the law in 2023, but not present demand for substantive justice. Given the present national circumstance, there is compelling need for a strong political opposition. Going forward, we in Labour Party and the Obedient Movement are now effectively in opposition. We are glad that the nation has heard us loud and clear. We shall now expand the confines of our message of hope to the rest of the country.
Let's now get some insight and some legal perspectives to what Mr. Peter Obi said. He's touched on several issues. So he's also come forward with some recommendations as to how our democratic principles should be shaped and going forward. But the things the nation should focus on is criticize the present state of the running of affairs as it affects issues of cost of governance. I'm being joined tonight by a very senior lawyer, Mr. Wahab Shittu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He joins us live from Lagos. Thank you so much, Leonard Sik, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shittu, for inviting me.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's look at the legal implications or the legal import of what Mr. Peter Obi has said, his own interpretation of the Supreme Court judgment. He said that it's a loss of confidence and the trust in the Nigerian people as espoused in the judgment of the Supreme Court. He said that Nigerians were disappointed and there's a loss of confidence and trust. What do you make of that statement? And what is a summary of your own reading of Mr. Obi's point of view?
Well, Peter Obi is entitled to his opinion. Of my own view and the view of patriotic Nigerians, who understand the workings of the law is that his statement, it is a very gross disappointment. My expectation is that Mr. Peter Obi professes to be a Democrat. And if he professes to be a Democrat, then you should know that there are certain fundamentals of the democratic tradition, which includes respect for the rule of law and the independence and autonomy of the judiciary. When the judiciary has made a final pronouncement, when the apex court, as judged as one of the best in Africa, has considered all sides to an issue and pronounced, as a Democrat, the expectation that one will expect from Mr. Peter Obi is that he should live up to his billing as a Democrat by respecting that final outcome of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court considered all 7 issues is still for determination by the parties, and then resolved all in favor of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The way the court of law function or the judicial function is quite different from the way the public opinion functions. Also quite different from beer parlor gossip or some other sentimental considerations. A court of law functions on the basis of facts as pleaded, on the basis of facts as proved because of proceedings. If all the allegations levied by Peter Obi, the question to ask is, which one of them was proved? Did they need evidence to show that there were malpractices? Did they need evidence to show that there was identity theft or perjury? These are criminal offenses, and the requirement is that you must establish that beyond all reasonable doubt. All lawyers, including the defense lawyers, know and will agree that the apex court, consisting of some of the best legal minds, some of the best jurists, did justice to that case. They resolved the case as presented. The law court is not a substitute for a public opinion. You have to lead evidence, you have to prove evidence for the court. An election petition is not something, it is regulated by special rules and procedure. They call it sui generis. You must lead evidence to prove each of the allegations that you make in your petition. And such evidence must be led conclusively, convincingly, with all facts established. The truth is that the petition was poorly drafted. There was no proof to substantiate all the allegations made, and the Supreme Court finally came to the rightful conclusion by declaring that the petition was not established and that all the 7 issues still for termination were not resolved in favor of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Again, we must make this point very clear that when you file a petition, there are rules that you must comply with in order to be able to succeed. You don't rely on the public opinion to prove those facts. You don't rely on sentiments as expressed in public places to prove that. The question is that you must, first of all, lead facts and plead facts. You must be able to lead evidence in proof of your facts. And then those evidence must satisfy the legal requirements to establish whether irregularities, whatever that you want to establish in the election petition must be proved. The expectation of the law. I think the point must also be made clear that the Judas was conducting a very Herculean task. It's not the Judas is not a substitute for the opinion of the or the will of the people.
Mr. Shittu, if I may jump in quickly, I like to draw your attention to the response of the presidency, which has released statement today, and they have accused Mr. Peter Obi of casting aspersion on the judiciary. The criticism of the Supreme Court judgment, can it be termed or tagged as an aspersion?
Well, every judgment of a court of law can be criticized. But the question is, how do you criticize a judgment of a court of law, such as the Supreme Court? You can only criticize such a judgment on the index of justification. I mean, you must be able to show by justification, by sound legal reasoning, that the judgment was not supported by facts and by the law. The question to ask is, you don't cast aspersions on the judges, particularly the apex courts of the land, on the basis of unfounded allegation, on the basis of unsupported facts. You don't blackmail the judiciary. You don't scandalize the judges. You don't, because you are only portraying yourself as a bad loser. In a contest, there must be a winner. There must also be a loser in a contest. As a sportsman, you should be able to accept defeat when you have lost. Mr. Peter Obi came not second, he came third. He satisfied with that. He went to the presidential court of appeal tribunal. He lost. He appealed again to the Supreme Court. He lost. Having lost, I think what is required of him is to come out openly and congratulate the winner. That is how a Democrat ought to behave.
Well, let me come back. Let me come back to some part of what Mr. Peter Obi said. And he said that there is a loss of confidence and trust by the Nigerian people in the position of the Supreme Court. Now, if you look at the valedictory speech of Justice Mohammed Datijo, does it lay credence to Mr. Obi's position about the trust Nigerians have in the judiciary, especially the apex court?
I can tell you for free that by the judgment of the apex court, public confidence has been restored in the apex court. When you look at the judgments of the apex court, which have found the judgment of the presidential appeal tribunal, you agree with me that that judgment is sound, unassailable, and is consistent. It's a restatement of our law. When a judgment has followed legal principles, has followed the law, how would that lead to loss of confidence? In fact, I feel very proud of our judges, of our Supreme Court, and majority of members of the profession indeed feel very proud at the outcome as pronounced by the Supreme Court. So Mr. Peter Obi, with due respect to him, is wrong to have passed, to try to substitute or replace himself with public opinion. Who's public opinion? The overwhelming public opinion supports this judgment. The overwhelming public opinion is consistent with the view that the election as presented by both Atiku and Peter Obi was a petition, was not proved. And what do you expect the Supreme Court to do when a petition is brought before it and there is no sufficient evidence to establish it? And then we're making reference to His Lordship Honorable Justice Datijo. Honorable Justice Datijo's criticism, a concern expressed was not in relation to the judgment. He didn't criticize the judgment. He didn't fault the judgment in any way. Honorable Datijo could not have even faulted the judgment. What he said was in the way of reform of the administration of justice system generally. And those were his opinions. And those were admitted. When the judge is retiring from the bench, he makes some observations that was only lead to, reform of the process. He didn't comment about the outcome of the petition as pronounced by the Supreme Court. In fact, he agrees with it. But I think right now, for instance, I agree with Mr. Peter Obi to the extent that there's a need to build a viral opposition. To the ruling government. That is consistent with the democratic tradition. He can sustain whatever opposition he wants to build. He can mobilize for opposition against the policies of the ruling government. Why? But to go to the extent of condemning the Supreme Court because the outcome did not favor him does not portray him, in my view, as a Democrat. A Democrat does not have to be a bad loser. He is suggesting to all of us that he's a bad loser. And it is not for Mr. Peter Obi to say this about the Guinness at all, because he has benefited. He is on record to have benefited in the past from this same judiciary.
Well, if you look at it, Mr. Shittu, you will imagine that Mr. Peter Obi said in his statement today that they've exhausted all legal means. Isn't that the right thing for a Democrat to do?
A Democrat is supposed to exhaust all legal means as he has done and be satisfied with the outcome. What if he again his way? Would he have said he is disappointed in the Judas? The Judas does not owe any obligation to either Mr. President Tinubu, former Vice President Atiku, or Mr. Peter Obi. The allegiance of the Judas is to justice, is to the case as presented by the parties. And let me make it very, very clear. When the Judas is called upon to adjudicate over election dispute, it's a Herculean task. It is when politicians refuse to be bound by the outcome, they feel aggrieved, that they come to the Judas. And so when the Judas undertake such a task, they ought to be applauded, they ought to be commended. There's nothing to suggest. All the 7 issues I can tell you, whether in relation to the status of Federal Capital Territory, let's say the FCT, the citizens of the FCT are special for other citizens of other states. You can also say that issue of 4G was proved. You can also say that electronic transmission of results is not mandatory by virtue of our provisions. And we also know that you cannot need evidence to prove malpractices in an election. Two collection agents, they only use such evidence to polling agents who were eyewitnesses. And then when you allege malpractices, you must also plead particulars of such malpractices. Again, when you fault the results as declared by INEC, because the presumption under the law is that when results are declared by INEC, they are presumed to be authentic. If you don't want to show otherwise, you must leave evidence by presenting alternative results of your own as compiled. All of these were not done. And then you cannot also bring fresh evidence at the level of the Supreme Court. Because we have 80 days to prove your petition.
All right. So let me jump in quickly. Mr. Shittu, I'd like to take you to this realm of Mr. Peter Obi's argument. And he said, as it stands right now, he doesn't think that the nation is on the right footing and that they will now officially be an opposition. I'd like to know what your views are and the fact that they will not back down. They will go to the Nigerian people and speak to them. What do you make of his position about being an opposition and not getting out of the fray, politically speaking?
That is sanitary. In a democracy, in a vibrant democracy, we must recognize the right for a very vibrant opposition. I'm sure President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and even former Vice President Atiku Abubakar will also concede that for our democracy to thrive, we need a very vibrant, constructive opposition. So what Mr. Peter Obi has said with respect to developing a very vibrant opposition is consistent with the fundamentals of the democratic tradition. That is okay. Nobody can criticize him for that. But what anyone will find very despicable, offensive, deplorable, unacceptable, attained by Mr. And it gets. And let me tell you, our justices, being some of the very best continent, even in the Commonwealth. So that some of them are one serving the World Cup. We have the best judiciary here. People who are detached from the process, people who are willing to deliver justice without any resources given. And I think our judiciary should be started. Our Supreme Court.
Mr. Shittu, I'd like us to anchor on this note. Mr. Peter Obi also came forward with some suggestions, which include a single term of 5 years for presidency, among several other things. He says that they will campaign and be talking about consumption to production. I'd like you to talk us to the end of your, as your final thought, his proposition on a single 5-year term for a presidency. And those that have suggested also that do not swear in any president until the cases in court have been finalized, like we see in Kenya. So there is an end to litigation before the resumption or assumption of duty of a new president. What do you make of these propositions? Just in about 60 seconds so that we can wrap up this bit.
Okay, I think I agree with you. What we make it for govern all election warning. That is very laudable. And then it's also a suggestion of a single 5-year term. Which you will realize that there's no way some of these proposals without constitutional amendment. So the way to go for Mr. Peter is for constitutional amendment to be able to actualize some of his proposals. As it is today now, as the constitution stands today, we have a two-term of 8 years. That is the constitution. And you cannot change that except. I want to encourage Mr. Peter. He has put on a very impressive show. I never thought that he may. And a lot of people thought it's a party state. But the truth is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu won that election. And that Mr. Peter Obi came up. That has been declared by INEC. That has been fortified by the Federal Court. That has been confirmed by the Supreme Court. As it is, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a legitimate president of the Federal Court, duly elected by the Nigerian people. So Mr. Peter Obi is right. Offer constructive. No one wants us. It's
let us say it seems that the audio is pretty much losing you
when it is scandalous.
But thank you so much indeed, Mr. Wahab Shittu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for your thoughts and your intervention.
Senior Advocate of Nigeria, not junior. Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Senior Advocate, that's what I said. I didn't say junior. I
thought you said junior.
No, you never would I say that. Well deserving status in the Nigerian bar. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Wahab Shittu, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
A pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.